So today I want to talk to you about help. Help in making right decisions, help with life transitions, and in particular, help in making the most out of school. And I want to focus most of my talk on the transition between secondary and post-secondary education. So about 1 in 4 of high school students today in Canada will not go on to do any post-secondary education. And fewer still will go on if they're from rural areas or disadvantaged family backgrounds. So think about why that happens. One possibility is that students know what they're doing and they're making the right decisions. That's the conclusion by treating education as a well-thought-out investment. If students don't go on, it's because they think correctly that the costs are going to exceed the lifetime benefits. And some recent media reports have encouraged that conclusion, pointing out that it's actually quite difficult to show evidence of skill improvement in terms of recent university entrants. And all the while, many students scrape by with bare minimum grades or don't complete at all. And while that's true, and it's a concern, I want to assert to you today that the convincing evidence still overwhelmingly supports the idea that faced with the decision to stop at high school and start your lifetime career or go on to college or university, there's at least some program out there which is likely to make you much better off. And that's not just in terms of income, but lots of other outcomes as well, like better job satisfaction, more job security, better health, better family outcomes, more social participation. And so if the returns to post-secondary are so high, why then don't students take more advantage of these opportunities? Certainly financial barriers may be playing a role here, even with access to government grants and loans. But I want to suggest to you today that there may be other things going on that we should think about. So recent evidence in psychology and sociology has demonstrated that seemingly small differences in the way that choices or opportunities are presented can lead to big differences in behavior. When you're structuring a routine, when routines need to be changed in order to alter behavior, individuals often succumb to their own inertia. They stick with the routine, even when it seems likely that the expected benefits from changing might be big. And that's especially true when it comes to making decisions with immediate costs and distant long-term benefits. Exactly the case that it is with higher education. And who's making the decisions in higher education? Teenagers, right? Anyone with a teenager or just experience in being a teenager can relate that adolescents are particularly predisposed to just not really thinking it through or not thinking about these long-term consequences. And that's not to say that teenagers make mistakes all the time or that the only reason for low levels of education attainment is because that of inertia or not sticking to a routine. But at least sometimes these types of influences get in the way of some individuals realizing better long-term outcomes. So how can we help? I want to give you an example of what might be going on, how we can help structure routines to better improve and make children succeed more in school. We actually already do some of this. We just maybe don't realize it. For example, a 6-year-old doesn't actually choose to go to school, right? She's not thinking about all the great expected benefits that she's going to get when she grows up if she can just get on that orange bus. Right? Parents registering their child to go to school and walking them to the door, and governments setting a minimum school leaving age so that all children start by the age of 6 are examples that how we help. We also make it easy to transition between grades. When a student finishes grade 7, they're automatically registered for grade 8. And when she finishes grade 8, a system is set up to make it easy to get to the right high school with minimum fuss. But the same cannot be said for the transition between secondary and post-secondary education, right? Historically, most individuals finish their education at the end of high school, and college and university was intended for a relative few. But since then, the demand for those with post-secondary credentials has massively increased, but the process to get there has remained basically as it always been. Students still have to figure out where they want to go. They have to find the application. They have to pay a fee, and then they have to figure out how they're going to afford to go. And so if the process to keep going, we're going to have to think more about it. So I suggest to you, in short, the reason why some individuals, not all, but some, don't go on to post-secondary, there's 2 reasons. 1, the process is not simple and it's not salient. And 2, there's not enough help to deal with the process. And so if we can't simplify things more, we're going to have to perhaps offer some help. So here's an example. This is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Every individual in the US, they want to qualify for financial aid to go to college or just learn about their eligibility, they have to fill out this form. The paper form in the FAFSA is 10 pages with more than 100 questions, very personalized information and specific information, things like exact earnings, exact income, social security numbers, and a signature at the end to say that all of this is correct. If not, maybe I might have to go to jail or face a fine of $20,000. And so if the process of the FAFSA can't be simplified further, or if individuals are just not accessing the form, maybe a helping hand could help. What I have in mind is something that I call personal assistance. Personal assistance is one-on-one help from someone experienced, ideally someone you trust and who genuinely cares about your well-being. It's a kind of hand-holding at an opportune time. It's someone coming up to you and saying, look, I know you're probably already interested in this, but just don't know where to get started, don't know how to go about it, or haven't figured out how to change your routine or get around to it. I have experience with this. I want to help you, and why don't we just sit down and get it done right now? There's lots of opportunities for personal assistance to a friend or a son or a daughter. From a policy perspective, it's a little bit more tricky because you have to come up with situations with this face-to-face contact with trusted agents on a large scale. So the idea my colleagues and I had to help with the FAFSA is to partner with a tax preparation company. In the US, the taxes are completed around the same time that the FAFSA has to be completed. And a lot of the information on the FAFSA is the same information contained on the tax form. And so if you could pre-populate the FAFSA with the information from the tax form, there'd only be a few remaining questions that you would have to walk through. So we teamed up with our H&R Block, which, as you may know, is a large tax preparation company that fills out forms mostly for low-income families. The company actually filled out more than 20 million forms last year. And in our experiment, a parent would come in to get their taxes done at H&R Block who has a child in grade 12 transitioning out of high school. And they were asked at random by the same person who just spent an hour with them on their taxes whether they wanted to stick around for an extra 10 minutes to get the FAFSA done for their son or daughter. So how can this help? There's actually a lot of ways that personal assistance might be working. One is that it gets the thing that you're trying to get them to do, it makes it more visible, more salient. Just bringing up the FAFSA might be enough to remind the individual that they were intending to do this or that this is something they want to do. Personal assistance is also, it reduces complexity. It removes the need to go through the instructions or think about the forms or worry about making mistakes when you're filling out the form. In fact, in our study, the participants didn't even have to look at the form. They just had to respond to questions being asked by the tax professional. And personal assistance can be convenient if it's offered at an opportune time. It's a lot easier to sit down with someone when you're already at their office than to ask them to work through on their own, find time to carve out, change their routine, and get it done on their own. And it can be reassuring. You have someone who is trying to help you and is encouraging you to get this form done, you're more likely to think that it's a good idea. And finally, it involves social interaction. You're working with someone. If you have any questions or concerns, you can get immediate feedback. It's a lot easier to change your routine when someone's right there holding your hand through it than leaving it up to someone on their own to watch a video on the internet or to read something. So let's see what happened. In the comparison group that didn't receive any help in completing the FAFSA, the filing rates were about 40%. And remember, these students were transitioning out of high school, so it's not surprising that there were at least some filing. But in the personal assistance group, the filing rates went up to 56%, a 16 percentage point difference. So that's a big change. It didn't go up to 100% because the students still have to sign the FAFSA, and they're not in the office. So the best we can do was complete the form, and then we sent it home first for the parent to get the student to sign, and then put in a prepaid envelope and send it back. Still, things get interesting now when looking later to see who's in college. A year later, in the comparison group, 30% are in college. In the personal assistance group, it goes up to 40%, a 10 percentage point increase. So think about that for a moment. We made the difference between not going and going to college for 1 in every 10 people in our sample, a 1/3 increase. That's big. And not only did we get them to go, but we got them to stay. The results for going for 2 consecutive years are about the same. And as striking as these results are, we think we can do better. There was that issue with the signature. And also, we only help with the financial aid form. We didn't do anything about the second form that needs completing, which is the program application. And we were only able to help families that went to H&R Block. So why not go directly to the high schools, especially the ones that are low transition, the ones where, say, fewer than half of them are going on? And that's the motivation behind the Life After High School project, which is going on right now here in Ontario across low transition high schools throughout the province, and is sponsored by the Ministry of Training Colleges and universities. And the idea is the same. We try to simplify the process and follow up with personal assistance in class so that every grade 12 student leaving the high school does so with an offer of acceptance with a program that they help choose and a financial aid package so that the bridge from high school to post-secondary starts to look like the bridge from grade 7 to 8. It's still the student's choice on whether they want to cross that bridge, but at least the option value becomes more real. So this is going on now. The workshops are being done in class, and the applications are being paid for by us. And we'll see what happens. Maybe in a year from now, I'll be giving another talk about that. So I want to conclude by noting that having to fill out a form is an easy example of where personalized assistance and simplification can help. And college applications are just one example. We can also think of things like helping students take the right courses so that they stay on an academic track, or that they graduate on time, or helping parents with the form for the registered education savings plan. But you can also think about personal assistance more than just helping with forms, but as a general way to encourage better behavior. You can think of it as a way, for example, of setting up a routine and making it easier to take tutorials, to attend tutorials. In life, there are lots of situations, not just in education, where we tend to follow routine and we tend to take the path of least resistance. And when you have that perspective, you realize that there's a lot of opportunity for personal assistance, not just in education. And so I hope you'll think about these and maybe come up with your own ways to help others and help yourselves. Thanks.